Well, record-breaking numbers to report as the winter transfer window for Europe's biggest leagues closed on Tuesday. And unsurprisingly, English Premier League clubs were at the centre of most of the major deals. Chelsea's acquisition of Argentine midfielder Enzo Fernandez from Benfica was the highlight. The 22-year-old signed for a British record of £106 million after representatives from both clubs had been locked in lengthy negotiations in the days leading up to deadline day. Incredibly, Fernandez becomes the 17th signing under the new Todd Boehly regime. Here's a look at the full list. So Enzo Fernandez, as we told you, at the top of that fee list there. Wesley Fofana in second spot for Leicester City, 70 million. Mikhailo Mudryk from Shakhtar Donetsk for 62 million. And we could go on and on. Marc Cucurella, Brighton, 60 million. Of course, another standout, Denis Zakaria from Juventus. One of the lower fees, 2.5 million. Then João Felix right above him from Atletico Madrid, 10 million. All right, there is so much for us to discuss, but we start with the Chelsea spending spree and the impact Fernandez is likely to have for the Blues. For that discussion, we welcome our international correspondent, Simon Evans. Good afternoon, Simon.
Good afternoon.
All right, hope all is well with you. We start with Enzo. Of course, how does he improve Chelsea and so much money being spent on him?
Yeah, I mean, it's a remarkable amount of money, really. I think anyone who watched Argentina at the World Cup obviously saw Enzo Fernandez, who didn't start the tournament as a regular for Argentina, broke his way into the team, did very well. Some would say did very, very well. But I don't remember anybody who was watching those games really saying, there is a 120 million euro superstar on the field for Argentina. So it's a remarkable amount of money they've spent for him. He has qualities. He's a very mobile midfielder. He can play really up and down that midfield. So we'll bring some qualities to Chelsea. But the other factor is they sold Jorginho to Arsenal as well. So I'm not necessarily sure they've overall massively improved their midfield.
17 players, Simon. I mean, in 2 windows, almost £600 million spent. Are you surprised by the pace of this rebuild? Because obviously a rebuild for the Chelsea program here.
Yeah, I think everybody's surprised by it. I mean, it's a remarkable volume of trading and also a remarkable amount of money that they've spent. And really, when you look at it, you have to wonder, is there a strategy there? Because they started that spending spree with Thomas Tuchel in charge, of course. Now Graham Potter's in charge. And Potter's got this job of piecing all these players together in the middle of a season and somehow trying to get this collection of players into the Champions League. And if they don't get into the Champions League, they could have some problems with the financial fair play rules because, there are rules there about your spending in relation to revenue and so on. And if their revenue is down and their spending is massively up, as creative as Todd Boehly has been with the scaling of the contracts, they could have some problems.
Yeah, especially since Graham Potter actually warned about bringing in too many players too soon, because it's about bedding in players and getting them accustomed to what his system is. It looks like, I don't know, it just looks like, I don't want to call it panic buying, but certainly there doesn't seem to be a system to this madness going on.
No, I think Todd Boehly, the investor who's taking control of Chelsea after Roman Abramovich was forced to sell the club, has come in and really he's developed a system there or an idea that if you put players on 7 or 8 year contracts, you can spread out the value of that deal over a longer time, so you get underneath the cap, as it were, for the fair play rules. Well, okay, well done. Other people had worked that out as well a little bit, but Chelsea have taken it to the extreme. But the volume of trading, really, it doesn't look like there's a clear idea there. And I think, directors of football and recruitment people and owners who get involved in these kind of things, they really need to listen to their coaches and their managers. Not necessarily, I'm not saying we have to go back to the old system where just the manager signed players, but they need to listen to them. Otherwise, who knows how the coach is going to put them together. It's going to be really, really difficult for Potter to do that this season. And you would think Chelsea almost, it's a risk factor on what they're going to do this season, and then sort of try and settle down and build something over the summer.
And Simon, speaking about risk factor, 8.5 years, the deal is locked in for. Any comments on that? I think that's a major risk.
Well, it is. That's the flip side of what I've just been saying, that the financial fair play rule, it seems like a very clever move to make. On the other hand, if Enzo Fernandez doesn't work out, you're back into a situation where they've been in with Romelu Lukaku, where you spent nearly 100 million on a player there, and a year later he's back on loan at Inter Milan, the club that they bought him from. So there's a lot of money flying around, a lot of players going in and out. I mean, we even had the laughable situation of Cucurella being interviewed on video the other day, and asked who he thought was the most intelligent player at Chelsea. And he said, Jorginho. And the person interviewing him said, he's not a Chelsea player anymore. And he's like, really? He isn't?
Yeah, it was funny. But on the other side of that, Simon, is this a show of confidence in Graham Potter? I mean, Bode did say he's backing him, for the longer term in terms of his management of Chelsea. Is this massive outlay a show of confidence?
Well, we'll see. I mean, if Potter finds it difficult this season, I think Chelsea, are going to struggle to get a Champions League spot. But if he doesn't do that and they end up finishing roughly around where they are, or 6th or 7th or something, then we'll see whether there's confidence in Graham Potter. But he's been given an almost impossible task this season now with what's happened. Yeah. And I think you can only start to judge him next season. But whether or not they back him, or does he start to get the same kind of, attraction to big names and spending money with coaches as he's had with players?
Yeah, well, only time will tell, Simon. Enzo's record, though, that signing was just the cherry on a very big cake. The Premier League smashed their winter transfer record total of $529 million, spending a whopping $1 billion this past month. Let's take a look now at some of the notable signings. So we see Leandro Trossard at the top of the list, coming from Brighton, heading to Arsenal for $27 million. We had Jakub Kiwior coming from Spezia to Arsenal, $20 million. Jorginho, as we spoke about him a short while ago, from Chelsea to Arsenal, and you can see that cost $12 million. Alex Merino from Real Betis to Aston Villa. And of course, let's see if we remember Wout Weghorst from Burnley. And of course, he went to Manchester United. All right, the list is so long, and I'm looking for the key ones to mention. Anthony Gordon from Everton to Newcastle. That fee was never disclosed to the media. Danny Ings, he went from from Aston Villa to West Ham, $15 million. Notice a lot of these transfers, undisclosed fees. Well, Simon, what are we to make of the record winter spending by EPL clubs?
Yeah, it's a real mix of stuff there. I think there's some smart moves. I think Jorginho could turn out to be a genius move for a team that's going for the title and maybe was just missing that little bit of experience and know-how and steel. It's a young side, isn't it, that Mikel Arteta's got. And to put in somebody like Jorginho in there, who doesn't even have to move country or city or anything like that, he should be able to settle in pretty quick. That looks to me like a really astute deal. And I think the other one would be, Sabitzer going to Manchester United, an interesting one. They needed an extra player in midfield, and he's a pretty good one to be able to bring into. Surplus to requirements Bayern Munich, he'd become in that situation. So United step in, and they've made a few signings like that, really, haven't they, with Casemiro recently, where they've gone into big clubs where they've got experienced players who aren't getting the game time and been able to pick them up. So, yeah, there's some interest. Anthony Gordon going from Everton to Newcastle, I think that fee was around 40 million, even though it was undisclosed. They do get sort of secretly disclosed to reporters sometimes. So quite a big investment for Newcastle and Anthony Gordon, a player who a lot of people really highly rate, but has been unsettled at Everton. And Everton down in trouble, appoint a new manager, Sean Dyche, but don't give him a single new player.
Yeah. Do you see Arteta, though, splitting up Xhaka and Partey to bring in Jorginho?
Yeah, it's a good question, isn't it? Because they're two pretty important figures there in his midfield. That's a really good question. I mean, I think he gives them another option, doesn't he? But yeah, I think ultimately he probably will do. There'll be some games where he's going to look at it and think, you know what? And I think maybe Xhaka could be the one who misses out there, really, because Partey's, you know, he's a much more all-round midfielder, really. But Xhaka's had a good season, and he's been the captain of the club and so on. So, you know, I suppose if you're looking at it going to the title, and you've got to say, well, you know, if one of those two got injured, who was coming in there, and they were a little bit short in that area, so it gives them another option. But Jorginho's not a player who's going to want to sit on the bench, is he?
But and the other side of that as well, is Simon, is the fact that Jorginho, in the way Arsenal is set up, because they're so tight and compact, he doesn't have to cover a lot of space, does he? Because he's not exactly the quickest guy on the field. But working within that system, he could actually be a big benefit to the club.
Oh, I think so, yeah. And especially when they want to try and, you know, kill a game, when they're 1-0 up or 2-1 up and they want to try and finish off a game. The way they've been a little bit, Arsenal, because they're a young, attacking, positive side, they've not necessarily had that side to their game of being able to, last 20 minutes, let's just keep the ball, let's make them work, especially against teams from the bottom half who are maybe pinging some long balls at you. Let's just keep it quiet. And Jorginho's perfect from that. So, you know, even, you know, he's getting on a little bit in age as well. Could be a player you bring on with 25 minutes to go to kill a game.
Cancelo's moved to Bayern Munich. There was an argument about a big bust-up with Pep prior to that move. Was that the primary reason for that move, or was it something else?
Yeah, my understanding is it was that. I've spoken to a couple of reporters in Manchester who covered that closely, and there was a lot of discussions between Pep, who wasn't happy with his attitude. Cancelo wasn't happy with not being a regular starter again after the World Cup, and I think the problem went back even before that. Pep rotating players around, and he left Cancelo out. And I think if you go back a couple of weeks, Pep was making these comments about the team not having enough hunger, not having the right attitude, and so on and so forth. And it seems that a lot of those comments were targeted towards Cancelo and maybe one or two other players. It weakens City. It weakens City. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, but does he come back to City at the end of the season, or that's it for him? Because we know Pep is pretty ruthless.
Pep is pretty ruthless, and he doesn't really give many players second chances, does he? If you look back, even players of the calibre of Zlatan Ibrahimovic at Barcelona and so on, you know, Pep has got that side to him, and it works for him, and sometimes it can work against him. And I feel that for this season, they've now weakened themselves a little bit overall, and certainly in that position. But Pep has his standards. He has his standards, and they've delivered results for him.
Yeah, that he does.
Definitely, Simon. Just one concern before we get ready to wrap. Will this affect Manchester City title chances, you know, João Cancelo not being in the lineup? Or do you trust Pep?
I mean, I'm not going to question Pep overall or not trust him, but I think it does affect it. I think it does because, you know, he's such a unique player as well, because not only is he a left back, but the way City play, where he comes into the middle of midfield and plays like a creative role, his assist records over the last couple of years was up there with the Liverpool fullbacks. So he really has been a very important cog in that machine. And Nathan Ake's done quite well playing there, filling in, but he isn't João Cancelo.
Definitely. Well, Simon, I want to thank you so much. And of course, we'll chat again soon. So much happening in the EPL.
Indeed. Cheers. All the best.
Thank you, Simon Evans there, our European football correspondent. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Stay with SportsMax on YouTube and follow us on all social pages for updates, news and entertainment.